Last night I read Cornbread and Poppy to my kids, but I read it all in a Batman voice. And they and they thought it was the best thing that ever happened.
I'm not familiar with Cornbread and Poppy.
Oh, it's so good. It's a story of a mouse and their friend.
Well, now all I want to do is hear a couple of lines from it in your Batman voice.
It's, hey, Cornbread, you want to go on a bike ride?
To me, that sounds like Billy Bob Thornton and Sling Blade being really creepy.
You got any of them French fry taters? Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Welcome to What We Really Want, conversations about connection. Settle in and get ready for a great conversation. Let's talk about what we really want.
Gabe Scott is with me again. Last time you heard from Gabe was when we were talking about Mike Donahue.
That I saw old Mike Donahue yesterday over on the east side at Ladybird. And it's so fun to see all the employees there, not because of music, because of Mike, when he walks in and makes them feel comfortable, just like they make him feel comfortable. I mean, like 4 different employees walked up and they were like catching up and having conversation. Anyways,
that's so cool.
So that was just yesterday.
Gabe's also good friends with our guest today. This is episode 36 called A Friendly Emptiness. And our guest is a good friend of both of ours, a guy named Brooks Veazey.
Yeah, I know that guy.
What can you say about Brooks Veazey?
Boy, I could say a lot about this guy. I could start with the small things, which are, this is me being sarcastic because they're huge things, which is that Brooks Veazey cares about others in a very, very, very magnified way compared to the average human being. He is a person of service. He likes to do anything that he can to help another person.
How did it come to be that he joined the Ladybird team? Because he wasn't there from the get-go.
Yeah, back in 2020, we were opening up the first Ladybird. And as we were opening, a worldwide pandemic happened. And you had a musician who would open a restaurant, 2 guys that knew a lot about restaurants and pandemonium. So they were coming to Nashville as much as they could to try and help save Ladybird. And then I was like, what's something I could do that would be really convenient for this moment? I think I should get a life-threatening illness. So I went ahead and did that. I was like, yeah, that's good. So I did that, but I didn't die and I survived. But in the midst of that, I was very absent and unable to be a part of this business that I had just opened. Mm-hmm. And my guys in Austin and knew of Brooks because Brooks had lived in Austin for a handful of years, working for a concept there, was in the process of just moving back to Birmingham, which is where he grew up. And Birmingham's not too far from Nashville. And so they reached out to him. Mm-hmm. I didn't reach out to them. They did everything. And
you didn't have a whole lot of capacity to do a whole lot at that point.
I did not, man. They finagled him into at least listening and coming to visit. And so he did. We eventually got to meet, and he sort of did like a test tryout to see if he wanted to be a part, and eventually became a part. And he's the CEO of Ladybird. Yeah. And thank goodness.
You're right in just talking about how much he cares, and it comes through pretty easily. And even as he's talking about the way that he wants people who come into Ladybird to feel cared for, that it's special because I think it's pretty easy just to get locked in a consumer mentality of I'm going to go in there, I'm going to get my tacos, I'm going to eat, it'll be fine, and I'm going to leave, and not really be particularly looking for the things that you guys, with Brooks driving a lot of this, are trying to provide. But man, if they're not there, you really do notice. And and
that's a great way to say it.
Yeah, he quoted you. He said that you say all the time, hospitality first starts with the welcoming of yourself. And so you guys try to value your team members and make sure that everybody who's working for Ladybird senses that they have a real purpose and that they matter. I've had the ability to see it just because we've been sort of on the inside with our daughter working for you guys for 2.5 years now. But it matters. It makes a big difference.
It does, man. It does. And Brooks is continuously trying to hone even more how we can serve people better, create food in a more unique, special way so that we can be the best that we can be today. And then maybe tomorrow we can be even better. So let's try.
Let's try sounds small, but when you go into a lot of restaurants, you realize that that's more than a lot of people are doing these days. Brooks read from a Henry Nouwen quote about hospitality. I'm sure you've heard it, but one part of it, he said the paradox of hospitality is that it wants to create emptiness, which sounds kind of weird. But then now it goes, not a fearful emptiness, but a friendly emptiness where strangers can enter and discover themselves as created free.
And to point it out with Brooks, I'm just not sure that in hospitality world, or at least in restaurant world, that too many folks are referencing Henry Nouwen, which yet again, to me, points out the unique, special nature of Brooks Veazey. He's trying to create a place that makes people feel safe, like you were talking about earlier. So,
well, thanks for helping me introduce this. I'm looking forward to people hearing this conversation. It's episode 36. It's called A Friendly Emptiness. Gabe, thanks for being with us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We're going to talk to Brooks right now. The only thing that after this many times that I'm unsure of what to do is starting it, especially when it's somebody that I know. Because when it's somebody that I don't know, I just say their name. Hey, it's great to have you with me. Thanks for being here. But when it's somebody I know, that feels way too formal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So maybe we'll just do it like this. Brooks Veazey, sitting here across the table talking to me. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm really glad that you're here.
Me too. Thanks for having me, Greg.
I have fewer notes, fewer things that I've jotted down to prepare for this than ever, because I just don't really think we're going to need it. People who listen to the show have heard us multiple times talking about Ladybird Taco. Brooks, you are a big part of Ladybird Taco, and that's part of what we're going to talk about. So I'm looking forward to that, looking forward to people getting to know you. But first, please tell me, what do you really want out of our talk today?
Yeah, I think more than anything, I want to share the heart for hospitality that I have and that Gabe and I have at Ladybird, and the heart that drives that, which is to create space for people to feel like they're able to be themselves.
Yeah, I love that. And I think when I think of hospitality and restaurants, I think of caterers all wearing the same color vest and, just making sure that everybody's glass stays full and bringing the stuff out on trays. And I don't think about it as a personal experience as much as a logistical one. And you hear about people going into the hospitality business, and my brain goes straight to all the function of what makes that work, right? You're talking about something very different.
Yeah. So, there's been a lot of really thoughtful people who've gone before me thinking about this. One of my favorite ways to talk about this is what you're talking about is what I would call service, whereas hospitality would be everything that is not service, that layers on top. Will Guidara says that hospitality is color, whereas service is black and white. And it allows people like on our team to express themselves, but also allows our guests to be themselves. And I think there's a rich tradition in the Christian world of hospitality, just in ways that allow people the opportunity to be changed and be moved.
Yeah, it's even one of the named spiritual gifts in the New Testament, the gift of hospitality. And so, when I think about it that way, I think very differently. But you're talking about taking a very personal version of hospitality as a concept that probably we would be able to be closer to if we're thinking biblically and bringing that into a work environment. And getting something bigger.
Yeah, exactly. And, we think about that for our team and our guests. We want to offer that to our team and believe that if we care for them in a way and accept them with compassion and kindness and curiosity, they will do that for other people. There's when we were talking about me doing this, I was reading Henry Nouwen's devotional. We do that with our family. And so he says, hospitality means primarily the creation of a free space where the stranger can enter and become a friend instead of an enemy. Hospitality is not to change people, but to offer them space where change can take place. It is not to bring men and women over to our side, but to offer freedom not disturbed by dividing lines. The paradox of hospitality is that it wants to create emptiness, not a fearful emptiness, but a friendly emptiness, where strangers can enter and discover themselves as created, free to sing their own songs, speak their own languages, dance their own dances, free also to leave and follow their own vocations. Hospitality is not a subtle invitation to adore the lifestyle of the host, but a gift of a chance for the guide to find his own.
Wow. When you were reading it in family devotions, was that the first time you'd read that quote?
Yeah. Yeah. And that hit me in a way that,
Yeah, tell me how it hit you.
yeah, I think I used to think, and I still find myself in that place of control was the way to serve people or offer hospitality, where if I can just create this thing and be in control of it, whether that's in my personal life or whether that's in work life, then that's how we're going to change people.
Mm-hmm.
And when I read that, it's like, no, like letting go of control and like, yeah, we have processes and systems and blah, blah, blah. But if we can be free and comfortable in who we are and what we're about, and then at Ladybird, like it's not like you don't walk into a big ad. It's empty tables that are able to be gathered around. Mm-hmm. More beautiful things happen in people's life around those tables with tacos and coffee than if we were trying to control something and create this like manufactured experience. Whether it's like we get to be a part of almost everyday celebrations, sadness, dates, first dates, 100th dates.
Yeah.
And so we get to be a part of a lot of people's life. And I think in finding the ability to just say, we're not going to try to control every aspect of this, and we're going to let people be themselves, including our team. So to encourage a whimsicalness to care for people. Yeah. I think it takes trust but it also is where the most beautiful things happen.
As you're describing that, particularly the part where you acknowledge, yes, we do have processes, right? There are details that have to be done a certain way, but you're describing that those are serving the bigger goal of providing the space for those connections to be made and for the hospitality and the relational things to happen. And it reminds me very much, what I do with Awaken, and you know about our recovery community and how there are focuses for people who are in recovery about some of the processes. We do things so that we can get sober. And then, but if that's why we're doing it, it's losing the heart and the essence of what I believe, recovery and relationships are supposed to be about, which is living out of who I am, finding my authentic self and living out of that authentic self. And so it's not that, in my example of being a recovering person, it's not that sobriety doesn't matter. It deeply matters, but it serves the greater purpose of, if I'm not sober, I'm not going to be able to connect. So if I am, then I don't have to spend every moment of every day thinking about sobriety. I can get on to what I'm supposed to be doing. So like the way you're describing what you guys are going for at Ladybird sounds like variations on the same theme.
Yeah, absolutely. So our core values are to be caring, humble, and hungry. And I think it is the humility to live inside of a structure and then allow the safety of that structure to propel you forward to express yourself and to be who you are. And I think, in my own experiences, I've walked through pain and suffering and joy of discovering who I am. And I think there's a fear of like, oh my gosh, like, what if I'm not enough? Or what if I'm somehow inadequate? And one of the things that Gabe talks about that I love, he says that hospitality first starts with a welcoming of yourself. And I think there's a sense where who we are is the first stranger we encounter. And then we go on to encounter other strangers. And I think, in my experience, Jesus is a guide. Because one of the other things Henry Nouwen talks about is the call of Christianity is not to imitate Jesus. It's to live in the way he created you to be. And that's also a new thought for me recently that's been really helpful as I walk this road of finding how to be myself, leading a company that's growing and trying to create, we say, to enable life-giving community through courageous hospitality.
I was jotting this down from a sentence you said about a minute ago. Who we are is the first stranger that we encounter. And it just hit me that how we treat that stranger is probably going to have a lot of influence on how we treat others.
Yeah. Goodness, that's good. Yeah, absolutely. And that's been true in my own life, where when I
because we came in kind of hot and we just dropped right into talking about like what and why you do. But I know that there's a lot of reason that gives that meaning and purpose for you. And so normally we have the guests talk about themselves first, but I think it'd be great to maybe pause and do that J.J. Abrams thing where on the screen it says 72 hours ago, and then like, oh, now we've got context. So take us back however many years and just help people get to know more about you and what your life has been like that has kind of contributed to how you're approaching things that we're talking about now.
Yeah. So I grew up in Birmingham, and my mom owned a hair salon for 30-something years.
I didn't know that.
On 31. And so I grew up, I washed hair. I can schedule a cut and a color.
Wow.
So I have more skills than you knew. And then my dad was an attorney. And so the difficult thing, the joy is I have two brothers, older brother and a younger brother. We did a lot of brother things together. But the difficult thing is my dad struggled with addiction. And so he was and is an alcoholic. And unfortunately, it's a generational thing on my dad's side of the family that's just comes from a lot of pain and creates a lot of pain. One of the things that our pastor says a lot is God only deals in reality. And that's been really formative for me as I've processed my past, because of the sense of like I want to push that away. But I think it's actually I found the most healing in pulling it really close in walking through that. And so, you know, there's a lot of things that come with addictive family systems. It comes with codependency. It comes with feelings of inadequacy and shame. But I think that those experiences with my mom's hair salon in the small business world, and then one of the gifts that my mom has is the capacity to make people feel welcomed in a space. And so growing up, we had people over every weekend for probably a variety of reasons. But one of them was just like, it was just fun. And so we would host people. And so I think in that environment, I loved the idea of anticipating people's needs and creating that experience where like, we had friends who grew up and some of their best memories are our house. And I think that's really cool and really special. And
so when they would come over, like, would you be more make yourself at home, grab whatever you want, or would you be the guy getting up to like notice when their drink's getting low and get them something else?
That's a good question. We were more of a make yourself at home. We also put our friends to work, which is hilarious. But
make them part of the family.
Yeah, exactly. So me and a friend, Chris Pegg, we at one point put out rocks across our whole front yard because my mom needed us to. And so, but he just did it. He was a part of the crew. Yeah. Part of the ship, part of the crew. So, but yeah. And so I think those things shaped my experiences now. And when you grow up in an addictive family system, control is a big part of it. And you try to control the addict, you try to control how you're perceived or what's going on in the world or your own world. And so for me, a lot of my journey has been discovering who God created me to be and figuring out how to show up in this world in a way that is curious, kind, and compassionate instead of having a tight grip around everything.
And so I know you're in your early 30s. I know that before Ladybird, you were working in food and hospitality in a couple of different businesses over the years. Is that pretty much professionally all you've ever done?
Yeah, basically. I did a year at Landing, and that was really hospitality too because we were doing short-term rentals across the country. I was over the independent contractor team. And so we were creating experiences there too. So basically, that's all I've done.
So tell us about your family.
So I have
your immediate family now. You told us about your grown-up family.
Yep. So I have a 5.5-year-old, Ira Lynn. I have a almost 3-year-old, Theodore. And then we have a 4-month-old, Greta. And so my wife and I have been married. We just hit 10 years this past January, which I think our anniversaries are like a day apart or the same day.
What's your anniversary?
January 3rd.
Ours is the 4th.
Yeah.
So you and Marianne, one day before, but many years after. We hit 33 this year, and y'all hit 10. So just as a reminder of how much older we are than how old you are.
Yeah, I hit 33 birthdays this year.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks for that. So I got married the year that you were born.
92, I assume.
Yeah. Thinking about when I go into Ladybird, either here in Birmingham or I've been to both of the stores in Nashville, but obviously the one in Birmingham the most, I see things that remind me of the first job that I had after I got into recovery. Back in 2009, I got a job at Chick-fil-A.
Yep.
And I was working in one of the stores here and running shifts. And I was just thinking about there was a group of old men who, now they've probably all passed on, because 16 years ago, they were all in their late 70s or early 80s. And so some of them may still be kicking. I hope that they are. But we called them the Brain Trust because it was the same 4 or 5 men. And I was usually the one who opened the store because, a store like that, breakfast and lunch is when, 90% of the business is. Yep. And you got a whole lot of things to do first thing in the morning to get everything set up for the rest of the day.
Yep.
So I would go in, we opened at 6:30 at the time, and I would get in there at 5:30 to start preparing. And the Brain Trust guys would be standing outside the door at about 10 after 6. And at about 6:15, they'd start knocking on the glass. And it was this daily ritual. I'd go over there and I'd just point at my watch. I'm like, it's not 6:30. Go sit in your car. The coffee's not brewed yet. But there was also something that I loved about that, because there is consistency. And they would come in, and for about the first 3 hours that we were open, they would sit at the round table and solve the world's problems.
Yep.
And it was so cool to have that predictability and that consistency. And I see the same thing. I mean, there are some men at the Birmingham store who are in there virtually if not every single morning.
Yes.
Tell me about just your regulars.
Yeah, that's so good. So one, I do have a theory that Birmingham may be run out of Ladybird. The Brain Trust. We have our own Brain Trust group. But yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that's really special when we talk about life-giving community. Breakfast, for whatever reason, is a ritual for people. Mm-hmm. And so...
Well, it's the most important meal of the day.
Most important, definitely. And we're going to keep that, theory going. Mm-hmm. And so people... there's this idea of a flywheel effect that Amazon made popular. And for us, that flywheel effect starts with the team and the guests. And so regulars, just yesterday I was in our Birmingham shop, and Jesse, who's one of our shift leads, saw this woman named Janie come in, and they screamed in excitement. And they don't know each other outside of Ladybird. It's just that she knows her order, and they've made a connection because she orders basically every day. Mm-hmm. And even like our AGT, that is a latte. It's a honey cinnamon latte.
That's not America's Got Talent.
No, it's not America's Got Talent. That is named after a regular in Nashville. And she was coming all the time, and those are her initials.
Wow.
And so I know some people in Birmingham who are
really cool,
striving for their own drink. Which
it could happen.
Yeah, hey, it could happen. But yeah, and so we've been able to foster these things where what we talk about it is where we want to be in places where people really live their life, where they live, where they work, where they meet friends, where they hang out. In Ladybird's been able to be a place of gathering for that in just really special ways. Like I think Awaken at one point had people meeting there on Fridays. Mm-hmm. And so it's just really cool.
We do have a lot of gatherings there. We're trying to be intentional about recognizing how much we ask of our volunteers and facilitators and making sure that they know how appreciated they are.
Yeah.
We've got multiple men's meetings throughout the week in Birmingham. And so what we'll do is one at a time, we'll invite all the men who facilitate those meetings on a certain day to come and have lunch on us at Ladybird. And we'll just pull a bunch of tables together and just hang out and not talk about anything except whatever.
Yep. I love it. So Greg, I don't know if this is allowed, but can I turn the podcast around and ask you a question?
Sure.
How do you, in the restaurant world, it's pretty straightforward. We have people come in, they're opting into us taking care of them in some capacity. Mm-hmm. How do you think about hospitality in this welcoming the stranger idea within Awaken?
Yeah. Well, I think that's when you said welcoming the stranger, like that landed in a really pleasant way with me. Because I think that a lot of people, when they first are dipping their toe into the pool of a recovery community, it's just that. They're like, I don't know if this is the thing for me. I don't know if there is a place for me. You know, they see themselves as a stranger pretty much in every realm of their lives, including themselves. They don't even like, who the heck am I, right? And so there's a lot of apprehension. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of shame. And one of the things that people have mentioned, how surprising it is when they first come into a meeting, how many people are laughing. And because that's not what they expect and that's not what they're feeling. You know, I don't know if they're just expecting a whole lot of people just in dark clothing, just sitting there with their heads down, you know, just not making eye contact because that's what they feel.
Yeah, totally.
But when they come in, they're like, these are just dudes. And like they're hugging, you know, if you're okay with that. And they're laughing and they're looking each other in the eyes. And it's like, what is this? And so I think, number one, it's a little jarring. If there can be a positive form of jarring, I feel like it's that. And some people aren't ready for it, but we just try to foster a place where you just come in and you don't have to do anything. You don't have to talk. You don't have to participate. We hope that you do eventually, but just notice, you know, and notice if this is something different from what you were expecting. Maybe that could give you some optimism, some hope that there could be something to this. So I don't know if that's a direct answer to what you were asking, but yeah, welcoming the stranger. I'm a doer. Like I'm a Enneagram 2, but I think I vacillate between am I a wing 1 or a wing 3, and I think that I'm more of a 3 of just like excellently, you know, doing all the things and so I'm kind of thinking like, what kind of experience do we need to create for them, and like having that be itemized and listed. And I've really, I think some of my growth has been getting away from that. And just letting them be. And letting them see other people being. And saying, hey, if you need anything or if you have any questions, that's what we're here for. We learn, we pay attention and we learn, and we just try to make it as easy a place to walk into as it can be, knowing how excruciatingly hard it is. No matter what we do, it's not going to be easy. So we try to not make it any more difficult for people who are taking a huge step.
That makes a lot of sense. It's fascinating to think about this idea that like beauty really does draw us out of things, and we can experience beauty in communities that are hospitable, and that, you know, we see this at Ladybird where people experience something different. Like the amount of people I've seen cry with Gabe at Ladybird is innumerable. But and so I think that's really special. And I think having spaces where community happens and people get to feel what that feels like, even when they don't know it, like why it exists or everything underneath it.
Think about what you just said. You've lost count of the people who have cried with Gabe at Ladybird. Think about how embarrassing or awkward an experience it would be in a lot of places to be seen crying in public. Right? Like that's something people would avoid like the plague. I don't want anybody to see me. But there's something about a space when it's created, and it's like Mike Foster in some caregiver training that he developed calls it building the nest. And so, you know, when you have purposefully built a nest. Now, not everybody is going to need it in the same way, but it's there, right? And so when you've got somebody sitting across from you, whether it's Gabe or you or somebody who's connected to Ladybird, or just the friend you've met there for lunch, who's attuned to you, who's paying attention to you, it's like, it's not necessarily even drowning out the fact that there are other people around, but I'm not as concerned about that. Like I can be who I am, and if that means that I'm getting emotional, that's not the end of the world. And it was really kind of beautiful.
Yes. And I get to experience this a lot with our team where, you know, for whatever reason, the restaurant industry has a really bad reputation for caring for team members.
Yeah.
And I think that's a tragedy in a lot of ways.
Well, I think that, tell me if you disagree with this. It seems like the industry sees team members as faceless expendables.
Yeah, exactly.
If this one doesn't work out, we'll just get another one.
Yeah, we'll just replace them. And that is so, I think, short-sighted from the business perspective, but then also just robs people of dignity. What we talk about with our team is everyone has dignity. We don't get to decide that.
Mm-hmm.
We get to choose how we respond to it. And that includes our team members, where, like, it's just a good example. Like, we employ a lot of moms who have kids, and guess what? When school gets canceled, it really affects them. And so it's, just starting from a place of like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, how can we partner with you to make this a good experience and hold you accountable and have standards and all the rest? And I think in the restaurant world, for whatever reason, people see it as an either or. Either we have standards and we hold people accountable and it's rigid, or it's just a free for all. And we're really trying to, find that wisdom, the road of wisdom of like, how do we compassionately care for people, including our team, and have consistency? Mm-hmm. And we've been able to find that with a lot of our team members, where I've gotten, to cry or tear up with our team more so, and just saying like, hey, we care about you as a person. You're not just a widget. Mm-hmm. One of the things that me and Gabe and Andrew and Ben, who are our business partners out in Texas, talk about is we see a world where one of our selling points is like we offer eye contact. or a human being will actually talk to you. Mm-hmm. Because that's the other thing that's kind of shocking is I don't even know if people always know what they need or feel that. But then you'll find someone like lingering, talking to you for 20 minutes. And it's like, oh, you needed some connection today.
And they didn't consciously know it.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
They got it. Well, when you said everybody has dignity, we get to decide how we respond to it.
Yeah.
I think before you respond to it, you've got to acknowledge it. You've got to be in that place where this is a person with dignity and value and worth.
Yes.
And like pause. Mm-hmm. Like, let me just remember that.
Yes.
Because that's going to really determine the way that I treat them.
Yes. One of the things that I was talking to our director of marketing about yesterday was there's kind of like these two pendulums. There's the pull yourself up by the bootstraps. You can muscle through anything. And then there's any sort of pain and discomfort is bad for me. And I don't like either of those pendulums. And what we're trying to help people navigate is finding that Goldilocks zone of this is uncomfortable because growth is uncomfortable, but it's the right dose.
It's a form of just right.
Yeah.
Not too hard, not too soft, but just right, which means it's a little hard.
Yep.
But then there's a little comfort and softness in it.
Yeah. And so for us, that's trying to cast that vision to people and help them see, hey, you're on a path, you're on a journey. Because a lot of people, myself included, want all the benefits now without any of the hard work. And that's just not possible. Mm-hmm. And so in a restaurant, we have, the people who run shifts for a restaurant are leading teams of, at Ladybird, 9 to 15 people. That's more human beings than most people will ever lead in their whole life. And I think we take it for granted that running a shift is just like, oh, yeah. But it's a leadership role, and leadership is developed over time, and it takes practice.
Your customers, the ones who are your regulars who keep coming back, this, I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure you think about it. I'm not sure how trackable it is. How much of people coming back over and over and over again is because of how good the tacos are versus the experience? Because, this is not a slam, the food is incredible, but you can get good tacos and good food at a lot of places, and you can get arguably tastier food depending on what you prefer, right? So it can't just be like, you can't live or die based on the quality of the food.
Yeah, totally. I think there's a bar for food and bev quality that has to be met. Mm-hmm. And I think Gabe and I would argue with you about the tacos. I think that the tortillas are probably the best in the country. But
I'm not saying I felt that way. I'm saying other people might
yes,
feel that way.
Hypothetical, other people might. But I think there's a bar, and I think that the bar for us is really high. We call what we do fast craft, this idea of bringing fine dining and fast casual world together and choosing certain elements to be crafted. So like our bacon is sourced from a bunch of local small farmers. We smoke our brisket in-house. We make all of our tortillas in-house. And so we do elevate that food. We make our guac and a lot of food. I mean, we're a scratch kitchen. And so we make all this food daily. But then the other part of fast craft for us is the design and decor. So there's, one of the elements of hospitality and welcoming people is this feeling that we've thought about you before you got here. And for us, that begins usually a year before we open the store, where we're trying to think about the guest experience when we're designing the space, when we're choosing finishes, is, when you go into our mountain brick shop, there's real wood tables that were crafted locally by manufactured good. And when you sit down, you feel that like this is a real thing. And there's some sense that the way that we are as humans, when we feel real materials, it communicates something to us about the space, about the people, about everything involved with it. And so there's the food, there's the design and decor, and then there's the hospitality piece. And I think it's almost like that's the bucket all of it sits in. It all has to be wrapped in thoughtfulness. And my hope is that Ladybird becomes, Neiman Marcus is really famous for hospitality. There's a story of them giving a return to a customer for tires that were not bought there. And I want Ladybird to be a place that when, someone applies to work at a place and they have Ladybird on their resume, it's like, they're going to be hospitable.
As we're starting to wrap up, one of the things that I was just thinking about as you were describing the tables and the thought process that goes into really everything, but specifically the guest experience as they come in and you're thinking a year in advance about what they're going to feel.
Yeah.
Okay. 90-something% of your guests are not going to consciously point and say, I bet you when they got these, right? Yep. They're on a conscious level.
Yep.
That's not where it hits them.
Yep.
But what you're saying is it still connects with them some way. Yeah. And so it may be an intangible. It probably is an intangible. But there's something about this place that just makes me feel comfortable, makes me want to come back.
Yep.
It makes me think, okay, so somebody who's been listening for 40 however minutes of this conversation saying, okay, we get it. You've worked hard to make it a really good place. What does that matter for me? But the hospitality concepts, I mean, that's in our homes.
Yes.
That's in how we show up when we go to Ladybird with somebody to meet with them because they said, I got something I really need to share with you. We can create our own nests.
Yep.
And I think take those experiences that we got from companies who care about that and say, okay, I can do this too.
Yep. And I think my first question would be, have you accepted yourself and have you welcomed yourself? And a different way to ask that would be, where are you on the journey of accepting yourself? It doesn't mean saying everything that you've ever done or did is good, but it just means accepting. And then where are you at with like accepting other people? And I think that can then move you to, how do I create environments that promote connection? And I think that's, something I care about in every aspect of life.
Could you read the now and quote again that you read at the beginning?
Absolutely.
I think that's a good way to bookend our talk.
He says, hospitality means primarily the creation of a free space where the stranger can enter and become a friend instead of an enemy. Hospitality is not to change people, but to offer them space where change can take place. It is not to bring men and women over to our side, but to offer freedom not disturbed by dividing lines. The paradox of hospitality is that it wants to create emptiness, not a fearful emptiness, but a friendly emptiness where strangers can enter and discover themselves as created free to sing their own songs, speak their own languages, dance their own dance, free also to leave and follow their own vocations. Hospitality is not a subtle invitation to adore the lifestyle of the host, but the gift of a chance for the guest to find his own.
So let's look for ways to experience that.
Amen.
And not just, but definitely including where we go get our tacos.
Amen. Thanks, Greg.
Brooks, this has been great. I love everything about the purposefulness of what you guys do and just the intentionality and the care. I love how Ladybird is cared for our family, specifically our daughter, but not just her. Sometimes it feels like special treatment until we zoom out and see, oh, that's good treatment, but it's not unique to her. Like, there's a long list of people that you can say are getting the same care.
Yeah.
And just really appreciate that so much about you and about the company, about Gabe, about all of it. So thanks for taking some time to talk hospitality and how important that is.
Of course. Thanks, Greg. Love you, brother.
I love you too. Take care. We'd love to hear from you. If you have questions, feedback, topics you'd like to hear us talk about on the show, click the Send Us a Message link in the show notes of any episode.